A few weeks ago, I left my corporate job. I needed inspiration. I thought the quiet of the Appalachian Mountains would help. I was 34 and not really a seasoned camper, but I set up a rustic cabin in the woods. It was surrounded by tall pines. I thought it would be peaceful, just me and nature, but I never forgot what happened. On my first night, I relaxed by making a small fire outside. It felt nice, until I heard something. I froze. There was rustling outside my cabin. I held my coffee cup tight, my hands cold. It could be a raccoon or deer, I told myself. I opened the window to check. Nothing but dark woods greeted me. Silence wrapped around me. I decided to shake it off and enjoy the moment. Over the next few days, I wandered deeper into the forest. I tried to capture the beauty around me. It was breathtaking, but I felt eyes watching me. At first, I thought I was just nervous, but then I saw things at the edges of my vision, shadowy figures that disappeared when I turned to look. The air had a strange weight, heavy with tension. At night, guttural murmurs echoed among the trees. I felt a chill down my spine. I was alone in a place that felt wrong. Once, I found a tree with strange symbols carved in it. They looked ancient, almost like they were warning me. My heart raced. I traced the lines with my fingers but felt uneasy. I needed to get back to my cabin. It was getting dark, and the shadows seemed to stretch toward me. I began to regret coming here. That night, I noticed something. There were remnants of fires near my cabin that weren't mine. The logs had burned low, and the smell of burnt wood lingered. Someone had been here recently. A wave of sickness washed over me. I turned to look around, but only darkness stared back. I had always thought I could handle the wilderness, but this was different. Then came the night I saw him. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure standing at the edge of my campsite. He just stared at me. My heart raced, and I asked, "Are you okay?" He didn't say a word, just continued to stare. The icy grip of fear tightened around my heart. I felt frozen, rooted to the ground. Then he spoke. "Why are you with her?" I whipped around. There was no one behind me. When I turned back, he was gone. The woods swallowed him whole. I didn't understand. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. I knew I couldn't stay here anymore. I felt watched, felt hunted, like prey in a trap. I packed my things that night under a sky full of stars. Each noise echoed through the trees, threatening to close in on me. I thought I'd break free from this place, but the feeling of being watched never left me. I drove out of those mountains, but I still wonder who he was and what he meant by her. I drove for hours, not really caring where I ended up, just needing to put miles between myself and that cabin. But as soon as I hit the highway, I felt that same unsettling daze again.
It was like a shadow lurking just behind me, pressing down. I glanced in my rearview mirror, half expecting to see someone back there. Nothing, just empty highway. When I finally pulled into a small roadside diner, I hoped for a moment of normalcy. The neon open sign buzzed faintly under a flickering fluorescent light. I stepped inside, and the warmth was welcoming. I ordered coffee and sat down, thankful for the chance to breathe. But it didn't take long for unease to creep back in. As I sipped my coffee, I noticed a couple sitting in a booth nearby. They whispered between themselves, glancing over at me often. I could feel the tension rise again. Maybe it was paranoia. I suddenly felt too exposed. I left a few bills on the counter and stepped outside, my heartbeat quickening. It was no longer just a feeling. It had wrapped me in a cocoon of dread. I got back in my car and drove further down the road. My phone buzzed with a notification. It was an alert about a hiker missing in the Appalachian Mountains. A photo of a woman displayed on my screen. I stared at it, my heart skipping. She looked familiar. I felt an icy pang in my stomach. The resemblance was uncanny in a chilling way. Keeping my eyes on the road, I recalled the words of that man from the woods. "Why are you with her?" I had no idea who he meant by her, but as the image remained in my mind, I started to wonder if the woman in the photo could be connected. Was she someone important? Something twisted pulled at the edges of my thoughts. I felt the urge to return to the mountains. I had to know. I turned the car around and headed back. This time I felt a sense of urgency. It was as if the woods had a hold on me, calling me back. The closer I got, the more convinced I became that I needed to uncover the truth. The setting sun painted the sky orange, and dark silhouettes of the mountains loomed ahead. I parked at the same place where my journey had begun. The cabin stood quietly, slumped against the trees, but the air was charged. Something was different this time. As I stepped inside, I braced myself for a confrontation, but all I found was silence. I looked around. The remnants of my hasty departure were still scattered, but the weight of unease increased. Every creak of wood felt amplified. A chill skittered across my skin as I turned back to the door. That's when I saw it. A small, folded piece of paper tucked under the front mat. I hesitated before reaching for it. The jagged handwriting sent a bolt of fear through me as I unfolded it. It read, "She's waiting. Don't let her get away again." All blood drained from my face. I felt a panic rise in my throat as the shadows outside the cabin deepened. The shadows seemed to stretch towards me, drawing the cabin into a darker abyss, and I felt my breath quickening. I turned back to the paper, my hand shaking. She's waiting. Who was waiting? And what did it mean to not let her get away again?
Some improvised cabin.
I was standing in the very place where it had all started, yet everything felt foreign, every sunbeam inside the cabin warped by what I now knew. The only sound was the occasional rustle of leaves outside, but it felt alive, almost aware of my presence. This wasn't a safe haven anymore. It felt like a trap. I shoved the paper into my pocket, forcing myself to look around the cabin once more. There had to be something else, maybe a clue. I ruffled through drawers, overturned cushions, and checked the small bookshelf. Just dust and old trinkets, no answers. But as I moved toward the back room, a creeping sense of dread clawed at my insides. Perhaps I should leave. But what if the woman in the photo was here? I couldn't shake the feeling that the man's warning was tied to her disappearance. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and stepped into the back room. It was dark. The curtains hung limp and dusty, blocking any remaining light. I fumbled to draw them back and glanced around. The room was cluttered, but something caught my eye, a shape behind an old wardrobe. I approached, heart hammering, and pulled the door aside. That's when I saw it, a backpack. It looked almost new, unlike anything else in this room. I knelt down, unzipping it slowly. Inside, I found a few personal items, a water bottle, some food rations, and a small notebook. I flipped it open, reading hurried, frantic notes about a woman who had gone missing. Her name, Lydia. My throat tightened. The notes mentioned a hidden path and a thing that watched, something that looked like a person but felt like a predator. I had to know more. A sudden noise startled me. A twig snapped outside. I froze, ears straining against the silence. "Get out," a voice echoed from the trees. It was a warning, not a plea. Maybe it was the man from the woods again. I scrambled to my feet and rushed to the window. The setting sun cast long shadows, but I saw nothing. The forest felt charged, alive with something unspeakable just beyond my view. I felt the weight of the notebook in my hand. It could guide me, give me answers, but I couldn't stay here. With my heart pounding, I tossed the backpack back and shut the door behind me. The cabin became a reflection of my fear, dark corners and unsettling quiet. I had to get out and start unraveling the mystery of Lydia. As I stepped outside, the feeling of being watched intensified. I needed to find out who was lurking around these woods. Then I heard it again, louder this time, heavy footsteps crunching on twigs. I turned to run, but the path behind me was swallowed by the shadow of the trees. Whatever was out there was no longer hidden. I wasn't alone anymore. Something was closing in, and I had to move fast. The forest loomed around me, thick and suffocating. With every step, the ground shifted beneath my feet, and the trees whispered secrets I couldn't comprehend. I didn't look back, pushing myself to move faster, adrenaline surging. The footsteps seemed closer now, and I felt a presence too close for comfort. I turned to my left, searching for any path that might lead me away. That's when I saw it. A narrow trail, barely visible. It looked overgrown, but it was my only option. I darted toward it, branches scratching at my arms and legs as I pushed deeper into the wilderness. The whispers from earlier became clearer, twisting around me like a noose. I stumbled over roots and rocks, doing everything I could to keep fear at bay. The last thing I wanted was to fall and get stranded here, vulnerable. As I forged ahead, the notebook's details replayed in my mind. A hidden path, Lydia, watching. I reached a clearing, catching my breath. The air was still, too still. My eyes darted around, searching for any sign of life, friend or foe. I had lost the sound of the footsteps, but the pit in my stomach only deepened. I thought about Lydia's notes, the mentions of a thing that watched. My heart raced. What if it was here, lurking just out of sight? I opened the notebook again, hoping for some clarity, but the fear had muddled my thoughts. The ink smudged from my sweat as I flipped through pages frantically, desperate for answers. Choose the right path, one note warned. The wrong one leads you to it. The realization hit me like a punch. Was it possible I had already chosen the wrong path? Panic surged, and I forced myself to look around. That's when I spotted movement at the edge of the clearing, figures hidden among the trees, indistinct but undeniably there. My breath hitched as I squinted into the shadows. They were watching me, their shapes shifting and swirling, mirroring the fear that twisted in my gut. I could make out their eyes, reflective, predator-like, gleaming with an unsettling hunger. I backed away, heart pounding in my ears. I thought about the man's warning. I thought about Lydia. What were they waiting for? My instincts screamed to run, to tear into the woods and never look back. But I hesitated, uncertainty gripping me. I needed to understand, needed to know if they were connected to Lydia's disappearance. But as one figure stepped forward, my terror escalated. A woman, disheveled, wild-eyed, and alive, emerged from the trees. She looked lost yet intent, and her gaze locked onto mine with an intensity that sent chills racing down my spine. "Help us," she whispered, a raspy plea that echoed through the air. Before I could process her words, I turned to flee, adrenaline propelling me forward. The forest closed around me as I moved, the path behind me swallowed by shadows. I could still feel her eyes on me, their weight pressing against my back, urging me to answer her call. I didn't know what would happen if I looked back, so I ran. I sprinted through the forest, branches clawing at my clothes and skin. My mind raced faster than my feet, replaying the woman's haunting cry. Help us. Who were us?
And more importantly, who needed help in this twisted place? I pushed harder, breaking through an underbrush that seemed determined to hold me back. The memories of the figures watching me lingered, their eyes like glowing coals, deranged, ravenous. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were closing in on me like wolves chasing their prey. The trees grew denser ahead, a tangle of dark trunks and thick foliage. Fear twisted my gut. I could easily lose my way. Suddenly, I stumbled on a root and pitched forward, landing hard on the ground. Pain raced through my knee. I gasped, scrambling back to my feet, the forest a blur around me. In the chaos, I caught sight of something. On the ground in front of me, partially buried beneath leaves. I knelt down, my heart pounding as I brushed away the debris. It was a faded photograph, crumpled and yellowed. It showed a group of people standing in a clearing, indistinct faces blending with the trees behind them. I could feel my pulse in my temples as I flipped it over, hoping for answers. There in the corner was a date, almost a decade old, and an address that sent chills down my spine. The same address Lydia had scribbled in her notebook in connection with her research. But I didn't have time to process that. A rustle in the bushes alerted me to danger. I whipped around, my breath hitching as I scanned the darkening trees. They were there again, the shadowy figures. Closer this time, I could see the outline of their bodies shifting, gliding silently among the trunks. My pulse quickened. Panic surged, the instinct to flee took over, and I shot down a path to my right, one that was barely visible. It felt like a claustrophobic tunnel, so overgrown that it seemed to swallow me whole. But the forest dimmed, closing in tighter, and I struggled to find my footing. A sudden howl echoed through the trees, a primal sound full of longing and rage. I glanced back. One of the figures had broken away from the group, a lean form rushing after me, limbs moving awkwardly yet quickly. Its eyes gleamed in the fading light, and I could see the wildness in its gaze. "Run!" I screamed to myself, but the forest seemed to close ranks behind me, the shadows deepening, churning with menace. Just as I thought I could escape, I skidded to a stop. The path opened into a small clearing, the same clearing where I had encountered that woman, but this time it was different. The atmosphere felt charged, alive, and I could see them, the figures, now emerging fully into the light. They circled around the clearing, their movements fluid, almost animalistic. The woman was among them, her gaze still locked on me, but now there was something more in her eyes. Desperation, yes, but behind it lay anger. "Join us," she rasped, her voice stronger now. "You can't run from the truth." A new wave of dread washed over me. I couldn't just let them pull me in.
But where would I run to now? I was trapped, and those hungry eyes were drawing closer.
Then I heard the crack of a branch behind me. I turned, heart racing. Someone or something was coming from that direction too. I had to choose now. The realization suffocated me. No path was the right path. "Help me!" I shouted, but all I heard was silence as the figures closed in around me. The circle tightened. The figures advanced, their faces now more distinct, though still obscured by shadows. I could feel their eyes boring into me. The woman stepped forward, her gaze unyielding. "You don't understand," she said, her voice low and urgent. "You're part of this." I shook my head, taking a step back. Part of what? My voice trembled, yet I fought to stay grounded. The clearing pulsed with an energy that made my skin crawl, a humming tension that coiled in my gut. "Join us," she repeated, more fervently. "We need you." I wanted to ask why, but I couldn't make the words form. Panic clawed at my throat. I could see the other figures shifting restlessly, as if waiting for a cue. Something deep inside told me I had to break free, but where would I go? The forest behind me felt like a living thing, watching, waiting. Then the sound of rustling from behind me caught my attention. A new figure appeared at the edge of the trees, a man, dirty and disheveled, his clothes torn as if he had been living out there for years. His eyes darted between me and the others, full of fearful recognition. "Don't go with them," he shouted, panic lacing his voice. "They'll take you." My heart raced. "Who are you? What do you mean?" "They're not what they seem." He drew nearer, eyes wide, and I could see the desperation painted on his face. "They want to trap you in their world. You have to find the way out." Before I could respond, the woman sneered, her face contorting with fury. "You think you can escape this?" she spat. "You think he cares? They lie to you." The man moved closer to me, urgency palpable. "Trust me, the clearing is a barrier. It's where they draw their power." Suddenly the atmosphere shifted. An unseen energy crackled between the woman and the newcomer like a live wire. I felt it wrapping around me too, tugging at my very soul. "Stand with us, or stand with him," the woman said, her eyes narrowing. "One will embrace the truth, while the other will lead you into darkness." I hesitated, glancing between them. There was anger in her eyes, stark and unrelenting, but there was a desperate plea in the man's as well. I had to decide. Before I could act, the shadows behind me shifted again, drawing my focus. I heard a low growl mixing with the wind, and my instincts flared. Whatever was lurking in the trees was about to reveal itself. "Now," the man urged, breaking my paralysis with a shout. "Follow me." Without thinking, I bolted towards him, the dark figures letting out sounds of frustration and anger. I felt the cold grip of the woman's voice behind me. "You can't escape the truth." As I ran, I heard branches crack underfoot and the growls of something sinister stalking the edges of the clearing. I focused on the man, who moved with a surprising grace despite his ragged state. Then everything went dark. An unseen root snagged my foot and I crashed hard to the ground, the world spinning around me. My breath came in gasps as I looked up. The man was gone. I was alone in the darkening clearing, the shadows closing in around me once more. I didn't know where to go, but I felt the pull of something, some unseen force drawing me deeper into the woods, and I had no choice but to follow. I scrambled to my feet, disoriented in the thickening darkness. I could still sense the energy of the clearing, but it felt more volatile now, vibrating against my skin like a low hum. I hesitated, feeling the weight of the shadows creeping closer, pushing me to make a choice. "Where did he go?" I muttered under my breath. The desperation in the man's voice echoed in my mind, but there was no time to dwell on that. Whatever was lurking behind me was getting closer. I turned to look back at the way I had come, fighting to see through the gloom. The figures had shifted, forming a line at the edge of the clearing, their features twisted into vague shapes, faces indistinct but filled with malice. I took a shaky breath and pushed through the underbrush, my heart pounding as I stumbled deeper into the woods. Every sound made my pulse quicken, twigs snapping, leaves rustling. I could feel eyes watching me again, and the growl I had heard before returned, now unmistakably close. "Think," I whispered to myself. "You need to focus." I had to find my way out. The urgency of the man's warning pulsed through me, mixing with the shadows chasing me. Just then, I spotted a flicker of light in the distance. Relief washed over me. I began to run toward it, my feet pounding against the ground. Each step felt like I was escaping something just out of reach, a scream that tried to claw its way out of my throat. As I approached the light, I realized it was coming from a small cabin whose window is aglow with a soft orange glow. Maybe someone is inside, I thought. I burst through the door, forgetting to knock or wait. A wooden bell chimed above me as I stumbled into the cramped space. The cabin smelled of wood smoke and something else, something sweet and old. I looked around frantically. No one was there. The furniture was simple, worn down by years, and the walls were lined with shelves full of jars containing strange substances. My eyes landed on an old woman seated by the fireplace. "Are you?" I started, but she raised a hand to stop me. "Sit, child. You've come searching," she said, her voice raspy but calm. I hesitated, but the overwhelming weight of exhaustion made my limbs tremble. I sank into a chair across her. "They're hunting you," she continued, the shadows of the forest playing behind her, "trying to keep you here."
The truth you seek is not what you think. Who? I asked, my fear boiling again. Those people in the clearing? The woman? The man? The woman embodies their will. The man bore the truth, but he is lost for now. Her eyes seem to pierce through me. Both paths lead to danger. But what do I do? I was desperate, my heart racing. How do I escape? She leaned forward, her tone turning urgent. Listen carefully. You must find the way between worlds, where the veil is thin. But beware, each choice has a cost. Before I could ask what she meant, the cabin shuddered. The door slammed open, and darkness flooded inside like a storm. I turned towards the chaos, my heart in my throat. That's when I saw it, a shadow creeping into the cabin, mouth wide in a snarl, the growl rumbling deep in its throat. "Not now!" the woman cried, her voice thick with dread. My heart raced as the figure advanced, drawing closer and closer. The creature lunged, its eyes glowing in the dim light. I froze for a second, plastered against the chair, the undeniable urge to flee battling against sheer terror. "Get behind me!" the old woman shouted. I stumbled to my feet and obeyed, positioning myself to her side, peering over her shoulder. The shadow halted just an arm's length away, a massive beast, its form shifting in and out of focus, like something caught between realms. I could see its bared teeth and the long limbs that twisted unnaturally. It was both a nightmare and a twisted reflection of something human. "Speak," the woman commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. "You are not welcome here." The creature snarled, deep and guttural, its breath stirring the air like a tempest. I sensed the strident energy around it, uncontainable and raw. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to plummet into the abyss. "What does it want?" I whispered, panic clawing at my chest. "It wants you," she replied grimly. "They know you've crossed the veil. You might be the key to their return." "Return? To what?" I was confused, trying to make sense of her words. Without warning, the beast lunged again, snapping at the air. The woman grabbed a jar from the table, one of those filled with strange substances, and hurled it towards the creature. It shattered, filling the cabin with a bright flash and an acrid smell. The beast recoiled, howling as if struck, but the noise pulled in more shadows, more figures gathering outside the cabin walls. I could see them shifting among the trees, dark people with hungry eyes, drawn closer by their companion's pain. "More are coming," I shouted. My instincts kicked in, and I shifted from fear to decision. "We need to leave now." "Not yet," the woman said resolutely, moving between me and the door. "We cannot abandon the truth. We must confront it." My heart pounded as I scanned the cabin, desperate for a way out, but the old woman was determined. "We can use their fears against them."
Suddenly, she raised her hands, chanting in a low, ancient language. The shadows surged forward, and the beast swayed, caught in some unseen force. I felt a pull in the air, almost like the room was stretching, warping reality around us. "Do you see?" the woman said urgently, her eyes bright. "You hold the power too. Focus." Power? How could I possibly share any of that? Doubt churned in my stomach, but I didn't have a choice. The beast growled, and the figures outside pressed against the walls, growing more tangible by the second. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. I remembered the energy from the clearing, the way it thrummed in my veins. I pushed it outward, desperately wanting to create something strong enough to push back against the shadows. But just as I felt a breakthrough, everything went dark. The cabin vanished, replaced by an overwhelming silence. I opened my eyes to find myself standing in a vast expanse of darkness, the cabin nowhere in sight. "Now you've done it," I whispered to myself, the fear setting in again. This isn't the escape I wanted. I turned slowly, realizing that I was utterly alone. But even in the void, I could feel them, a presence just beyond my reach, waiting to strike. And now they come.
A whisper echoed in the darkness. Everything tightened inside me, and I knew I would have to face my past to find my way back. I felt the fear and uncertainty enveloping me, and one clear thought pushed through. I needed to understand who I truly was to combat the truth hunting me down. I stood alone in the darkness, the silence thick and heavy. It was an oppressive void, wrapping around me like a shroud. I could feel the presence lingering, vibrating with an unspoken threat. I squinted into the blackness, searching for any sign of light or shape. "Hello," I called out, my voice barely a whisper. The echo faded, swallowed by the emptiness. Then I felt it, a brush against my cheek, like a cool breeze, but I knew better. I stumbled back, fear shooting through me. It was too quiet, too still, but I sensed eyes watching, lurking in the black. "Focus on what you fear most," the old woman's voice rang in my mind. I shook my head, trying to drown out the memory. It felt impossible to conjure anything but dread in this place. "Show yourself," I yelled, my voice stronger than I felt. In response, shadows rippled around me, and forms began to appear. Unearthly figures, grotesque and elongated, shifted in and out of view. Their hollow eyes watched me, gleaming with malicious intent. My heart raced as the feeling of being surrounded tightened like a vice. Desperation gripped me. I recalled the energy I had tapped into before, the connection to the clearing, the source of power. Maybe it could guide me here too. I closed my eyes again and took a deep breath, searching for that familiar hum within. But then I heard laughter, hollow and echoing. It floated through the darkness.
The sound twisted in my stomach, filling me with a sense of dread. "Do you think you can escape?" a voice taunted, thick with mockery. It felt familiar, but I couldn't place it. "You're just another lost soul in the dark." My eyes snapped open. What did they mean by lost? How had I ended up here? The question crashed against my mind like waves, but there was no time for answers. Suddenly, the shadow surged forward, faster than I could react. I could feel the cold breath of one brush past me, a fleeting sensation that left my skin crawling. Instinct kicked in. I bolted, fleeing into the abyss. The laughter chased me, threading through the darkness like an invisible wire. I didn't know where I was running, but the urgency pushed me. I had to find a way back to the cabin, to the woman, to the truth. The thought of being trapped here with those shadows terrified me, urging my legs to move faster. As I charged forward, I spotted a flicker of light. It danced in the distance, a small beacon piercing through the dark. With renewed hope, I sprinted toward it. Maybe it was the way out. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't just light. It was the outline of a person, an indistinct figure standing still, waiting for me. My heart dropped. "Is someone there?" I called, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. The figure didn't reply. It simply pointed towards the light. My instinct screamed at me to run in the other direction, but I hesitated. This could be my chance to unravel the mystery, to face whatever awaited me. Just when I thought I might reach that light, the ground beneath me shifted, pulling back as though the darkness itself had teeth. My stomach dropped as I lost my footing and fell. Everything went black again. When I landed, I found myself back in the cabin, surrounded by familiar sights. But the creature was still there, pacing, its presence looming. I was back, but in a way that seemed worse. I could feel my past closing in, the shadows whispering my name, taunting me with what I had tried to escape. I'd have to confront whatever lay ahead, or risk becoming a part of their darkness forever. The cabin felt alive around me, thrumming with a sinister energy that buzzed through the air. I stood frozen, processing the rapid shifts in my reality. A mere moment ago, I had been plunged into a haunting darkness, and now I was back among the familiar but terrifying confines of the cabin. But this time was different. I could feel the weight of the creature's gaze burrowing deep into me, stirring something primal. "Why can't I just leave?" I shouted, the echo of my voice lost in the tension gripping the room. The creature paused, tilting its head, as if considering my words. Its eyes gleamed with an unsettling intelligence. "You think you are separate from this place, from me." The growl morphed into a voice that sent chills racing down my spine. "You belong here. They all do. Who?" My breath came fast, heart drumming painfully against my ribcage. I had to know. The figures in the woods, Lydia, the woman, are they connected to you? With a mocking growl, it took a step closer. "They are lost like you. Haven't you felt it? The pull? The desire?
desire. The word echoed through my mind, conjuring visions of wild figures dancing in the moonlight, of whispered promises of belonging. I shook my head, suppressing the darkness that threatened to envelop me. No, you won't take me. I took a step back, fueled by instinct more than rationale. I could still hear the old woman's voice in my head. Find the way between worlds, where the veil is thin. I darted toward the door, but it slammed shut, trapping me inside, as shadows curled around the windows, blocking the last rays of daylight. You're not leaving, it said softly, almost eerily sweet. You just need to decide. Decide what? I gasped. The shadows seemed to reach for me, and with every passing moment, the air thickened. The truth, it replied, advancing. Fear or acceptance. Join us or be consumed. I felt desperation claw at my throat, the enormity of the choice drowning me. What happened to the man who had warned me? Was he a similar choice? Maybe I too was lost, but I wouldn't let it end this way. I remembered the energy, what I had felt earlier, that connection to something greater. Choking back fear, I centered myself, focusing on what I knew to be true. If I belonged anywhere, it wasn't with the shadows feeding off fear. I closed my eyes as the shadows thickened, replacing the cabin's warmth with icy dread. From deep within myself, I summoned a pulse of energy. I reject you, I whispered fiercely, letting my conviction swell. I choose to fight. When I opened my eyes, I was surrounded by a dazzling light erupting around me. It flickered against the darkness, the shadows shrinking back. The creature snarled, its eyes reflecting the panic that churned within. No, it screeched as the light grew brighter. You cannot escape. I plunged toward the door, an infallible determination guiding my movements. Somehow, I believed that light was the key, the path to breaking free. Just as I reached for the handle, a deafening roar erupted, shaking the very walls around me. Everything went still. I flung open the door and stepped into the roaring chaos outside. The air surged around me as I felt myself falling, not into darkness, but a moment of pure light. Suddenly, I was standing in the woods, breathless. The clearing lay before me, familiar yet ghostly, silhouettes of figures circling the edges, all too still for comfort. But the weight that had pressed on my chest was gone. I glanced back at the cabin, a swirling mass of shadows and sound. Before facing the figures, I felt strangely calm. It had become an endless cycle of fear, but I had chosen. I won't be trapped, I shouted into the clearing, fierce determination ringing in my voice.
The figures paused, and in that moment I saw their eyes, glistening, haunted. They were more than just predators. They were lost souls, echoes of what once was. I couldn't save them, but perhaps by standing my ground, I could free myself. I choose to find the truth, I called, echoing the woman's earlier conviction. And I won't let you keep me. The air crackled, electricity surging through the atmosphere. The figures murmured, the sound swirling in my ears like a chorus of ghosts, fading. They were retreating, into the shadows, the very air vibrating with the remnants of their anguish. With the darkness receding, I felt the veil lifting. Dawn crept upon the horizon, a light breaking against the heavy cloak of night. I turned to head into the depths of the woods, but something inside lingered. Even as I took a few steps forward, one last question weighed on my mind. Had I truly escaped, or had I become a piece of this unfolding mystery? I couldn't see or feel them anymore, but the shadows of the woods whispered, remnants of a truth that still eluded me. As I trudged deeper into the trees, uncertainty mingled with hope. I didn't know what lay ahead, or if the lingering dread would ever completely fade. I just knew I had taken my first step into unknown territory, and for now, that was enough. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder about the woman and the lost souls entwined in the darkness. The truth always feels closer than shadows, but it's a puzzle that remains unsolved, just beyond my reach.